Hey there, my name is PJ Capozzi. Want to check in for a quick, short video about one of the things that we do that really hampers our ability to build the culture we want to do. So, whether we're talking about building a culture in a classroom, building a culture in a school, or building a culture in a district, we have to realize that culture is based around three core elements to me. Number one is that culture is everything we do, and everything we do is culture. So this includes every interaction we have, whether it be a 20-second interaction or a 20-minute interaction. This involves whether we decide to step over a pencil that's on the ground or tolerate somebody stepping over a pencil on the ground as we walk by. The other thing that we have to be mindful of is that culture is always malleable, that we are in a constant state of either growth or deterioration in terms of our culture, and that is being built, molded, and shaped at all times. And as leaders, so whether this is the leader by title or the leader by function, and as classroom teachers, we are all leaders of our classrooms, as a reminder that culture is largely based on the behaviors that we model and that we tolerate. So, what we do and what we allow to happen. The worst behavior that is commonly acceptable, whether it be in your classroom, your building, or your district, oftentimes is what actually defines the culture. So today we're going to focus on a very specific culture killing behavior, and that is projection. And projection happens when we mistake our own viewpoint and emotion in the moment for that of the building or those that we serve. So this is where we get caught up and myopic in our own lens, and it doesn't allow us to see the greater picture. So projection bubbles itself to the surface in three ways: insecurity, overexcitement, and fatigue. These are the most common ways. Are there other ways? Absolutely. Insecurity. So this is kind of the Twitterification of education. So this is where you check out something on Instagram, on Pinterest, on Twitter, and you're like, oh man, this school's doing something. It's so amazing. It's so cool. I want to be like them. I want to be like that in my classroom and do something that is either not in line with the objectives and the goals that you've stated, not in line with the culture you want to build, or inauthentic to your personality. So I see some amazing things on Twitter from leaders across the country that I just can't do. That's not who I am. So while it's amazing for them and I'm rooting for them and cheering them on, if I tried to bring that to my district, it just wouldn't work. Overexcitement. So any teacher, I think, can appreciate this, or a principal that remembers their life as a teacher. This is what I call my principal just went to a conference syndrome. So this is where you spend 5 months doing, for example, work on equity, and we're really talking about social justice and how we can make sure that with every decision we're closing equity gaps as opposed to perpetuating them. And then all of a sudden, my principal goes to a conference, and when we come back, what we're focused on now is PLCs. We completely abandoned the work that we've been doing because we were distracted from our primary purpose because we got overexcited. And the third one is fatigue. Fatigue is simply where we project our energy level at the current moment onto the collective, and therefore we either are push hard or pull back, or we cancel meetings or we schedule meetings, all based on our whim, not based on being able to read the room. So when we talk about insecurity and overexcitement, so the principal went to a conference syndrome or the Twitterification of education, what we are doing is we are modeling behavior that says it's okay to be distracted from your primary purpose whenever it best suits you. So whatever you consume, it allows you to detract from what you've said is most important to you. The net result of this is that you create a culture where there is no shared identity or shared understanding of what success looks like. Because if we are constantly moving the target, and whether this is on kids or on adults, it becomes very hard to hit the target. And when it becomes very hard to hit the target because it's constantly moving, what people stop doing is they stop trying to shoot at the target. And as a result, that is how it manifests and destroys our culture. Fatigue manifests and takes down culture because of this, is that if we are constantly doing what we are feeling as a leader and we're not reading the room, we're not being receptive, if we're pushing at a time, we should pull back. And if we pull back at a time, we should push. Our behaviors appear and quite literally are a bit selfish. And B, we never quite go at the pace necessary to create the change that our kids deserve. I would say that most people would say that schools have changed more in the last 12 months than they have in the last 12 years combined. So now we know the pace of change that we're capable of changing at. When we continually project our level of fatigue, energy, and effort onto everyone else, this just quite literally slows down progress. This manifests itself in a classroom If this is when you're tired, you put on a movie instead of continuing to push through and challenge kids to think critically and analyze. This isn't to condemn every movie that's ever been shown, but I think you know the point that I'm trying to get at. So as I close with this, and just want to make sure that my intent with this is to teach you a little bit, but also to make you to think, is that right now in your building, in your classroom, are you building culture or are you tearing it down? Are you staying focused? Are you not chasing initiatives? And are you really accurately reading the room to know how hard you can push at which time? Because if you're doing so, then you're building a culture. If you're not doing that, then what you're doing is you are also building a culture. It's just not the one you want to. So as I say, pretty much every time I talk about culture, when I look at really high performance organizations, teams, schools, companies, they're usually grounded in three things. They're values driven propositions that basically all stem from that we believe that we can continuously get better every single day. That we're going to operate with integrity. And for me, integrity also means that we're going to be focused on equity. And lastly, we're going to constantly and doggedly pursue excellence. And if your culture is rooted in and defined by those three things, you're going to have a ton of success. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed.